am going to share a message today based upon one of our core values as a church. And last year we did a series called Cultivate. Last year we were really revisiting our core values of it as a church and just kind of trying to figure out exactly, do we have the proper language for our culture? I think a lot of people will try to have the language before, but what I've found is that culture is something that grows. It's not necessarily something that you make happen, right? So there's an organic side of culture. In fact, the word culture and just what that lends itself to is something that is growing, something is developing. And so one of the things that we did when we started a church is we had in our minds what we wanted the service to look like, right? We thought we want church services to look this way. So when we started our church, we thought, hey, that's what's going to happen. We're going to have these awesome services and people are going to come and there's going to be life change and all this kind of stuff. And so we're excited about that. But what we didn't really consider is that what was going to be happening behind the scenes and what was going to be happening in homes and in conversations during the week. And so what ended up happening is when we started in the first building that we had before we moved here is actually the second building, but when we moved to Sunday mornings, is when people would show up for the first time, they would say, it feels like home. Yeah. It feels like family. And that was not in our mission statement anywhere. That was not a purpose. It was not something that was on the wall. And so what we recognized is this is something that was already there that we had not yet to identify. And then we were able to identify and then bring language to that. And that language is family. And so we know that we follow Jesus together, right? That's one of our core values here at Overflow Church. Family, we follow Jesus together. And many will say that we do life together. And I love that statement. But listen, Jesus put you in a family. He didn't just, in our culture, we've got this individual identity thing that is the most important thing for people in our culture. The most important thing is self and my self-identity and what can I do to self and being true to myself and my self-expression and all this. And what ends up happening and part of what we're seeing in our culture is we become more self-centered and self-focused. We lose the thing that we need most, and what we need most in this life is family. And so we see this breakdown of our culture. I don't have to go into the stats for you to already know that in cases of suicide, in cases of depression, in cases of incarceration, all the troubles that we're facing as a culture, the big ticket issues, the thing that we're mostly concerned about can be solved at the dinner table. But now we've all got tablets instead. And we're all, even in our homes, we're all in different rooms. I mean, we have this a lot at our house. And so it's important that we gather together. It's not just you and Jesus. I've seen it. I've seen the TikToks. We've seen it. It's just me and Jesus. It's not just you and Jesus. That is not a biblical or robust biblical view of the scriptures. The scriptures were not written to you. They were written for us as a collective body. 2/3 of the New Testament are letters that are written to people that are following Jesus together. So we want to follow that. Y'all okay? Boy, I'm ready to preach today, so I'm already like 2/3 of the way in and ahead of myself. Genesis chapter 2, in the beginning, in the garden, God establishes the most important institution on planet Earth, family. Here it is, Genesis chapter 2, verse 15. The Lord placed the man in the Garden of Eden to tend and to watch over it. He's got a job for us to do. But the Lord warned him, you may eat the fruit of every tree in the garden, except for the tree of knowledge of good and evil. If you eat of its fruit, you will surely die. Verse 18. This is where I want to focus today. Then the Lord said, it is not good for the man to be alone. Now, if you're familiar with the creation story, we know that it goes this way, right? God creates something. At the end of the day, he says, it's good. It's good. The heavens and the earth, it's good. The animals, it's good. All the things, it's good. God says it's good. He creates man. He puts him in the garden. He gives him a mandate. And he says this isn't good. Listen, if you were doing Christianity alone, if you were doing life alone, if you were following Jesus alone, it's not good. It's not good that you have to go through trials and nobody else knows about it. It's not good that your marriage is suffering and you don't have friends to rally around you that are not just for your side of the story, but they're for the marriage. It's not good that you're sitting up late at night scrolling your life away because you're so depressed. It's not good that you're alone in that battle. You need to have a friend in your life. You need to have family. And you wonder why you're aimless, because when we come together as family, we realize that there's purpose, that God puts us together intentionally, on purpose, for a purpose. We talk about this in marriage a lot, but listen, God puts us in family together. The kingdom is a family-ran business.
Yes, that's good.
We all have the same Father. We all have the same King, and we're doing his work on the earth together. You don't get to do it alone. And there's no joy in doing it alone. When I was young and in the ministry and doing what God called me to do, I had this like Lone Ranger mindset. Nobody else is doing what I'm, and it is true. God's calling for you is very specific, but he never called us to do it alone. And so I kind of treated things like unity and community as secondary issues. And you know what ended up happening to me? Ended up getting sick. And I didn't have anybody to help me. Because I didn't develop around me the institution of family. So God has a mandate for us. And the method of the mandate is family. The method of the mandate is family. Family is God's primary form of government. Listen, we can sit around and we can talk politics all day long. You're sick of it. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of reading about it. We think all of our problems are going to be solved if we get the right person in office. No. Because you might have had your guy 4 years ago. Or maybe you got your guy now. It doesn't matter who the guy is. What matters is what's happening at your dinner table. What matters is what's happening in your church community. I'm not talking about you just showing up to church and worshiping together on Sunday. That's awesome. But are you following Jesus with a community of people, or are you trying to do it alone? Yeah. And the breakdown of America right now is that we're so focused on self. That's where it's at. If we can get a little bit more focused on family, we'll see that God's purposes can be executed on the earth. And this is why the enemy works so hard to divide. This is why he is a master at manipulation while sowing bitterness and offense to get you to the place where you hate the family of God. This is why he wants to tarnish the bride and separate you from her. Yeah. It's so that you won't fulfill your purpose. It's so that you won't experience the life-giving power of family. He's trying to get you to hate the church, attempting to get you disconnected from the family of faith and call it virtuous. One of the greatest virtue signals that I see from Christ followers today is the virtue signaling of bashing the church. I'm virtuous. The church is, you're perfect, so you're the one that's going to, well, they're in charge. Listen, we're all part of the family, and the family fails. But we've got to own it and realize that when we fail together. Has the church made a lot of mistakes? Absolutely. Am I going to fix them by being critical? No. I'm going to fix them by buying into the family and saying, what can we do? But what the devil wants is for you to be offended and for you to feel like that you're some kind of arbitrator for the world. Jesus already did that, by the way. So sit in the proper chair. The devil is a liar. He will attempt to get you focused on the failures and imperfections of the body in order to keep the body unhealthy. Did you know that if you're not in the body, if you're not functioning in the body, you're part of the body and you're unhealthy? Right. Think about like little pains. I have this little pain that I've had on I have all these little pains that started showing up about a month ago when I had a little over a month ago when I had a birthday. I was like, man, why is my foot hurting? Why is my back hurting this way? And so I can have one pain. I have a little pain that's been on the side of my foot recently. And when it's hurting, I don't think about anything else. Right. It's like my whole body doesn't function well because that part is quote unquote ill. And so you don't serve the body of Christ well by being ill, right, or by being out of it. You've got to be in it, and we've got to get you healthy. And you're not going to get healthy outside of it. I mean, you cut your hand off and throw it in the closet, it's not going to get well. It's going to die. You better get it sewed on real quick, right? If that's even a possible thing. So some need to remember and recognize that they are not ambassadors for the world, but to the world as ambassadors of Christ, also known as the ecclesia, the called out ones, the church. There is an arrogance of some people that think it's their job to rebrand the church with a critical spirit instead of a spirit of grace and tenderness. They have missed greatly that Jesus loves the church and gave himself to make her clean. The church is imperfect because it's full of people. We are messed up. Yes. Has there been abuse? Has there been scandals? Yes, absolutely. But things that I can't change, it will only frustrate me to get involved in business that I can't change. And we live in a world that we see everything that's happening. Listen, can I encourage you in this? God did not give you the capacity to worry about things that you can't change. So part of the reason why we're so frustrated and we're so irritated all the time, because you will hear more. I read a stat a while back that said that you will hear more bad news in a week than our grandparents heard in their entire lives. God did not create us for this capacity to know all the things that are happening in the world. Well, should we want to be aware? You should be in the know and be aware of the things that you can influence. And you're not going to influence them through TikTok. There's about 1 billion people trying to do that. And you don't remember any of the things that they said a week ago because your mind is overpopulated with garbage, most of it. You won't get biblical Christianity doing it alone. Only lost sheep travel alone. Only lost sheep travel alone. Jesus called us to be the flock, not his prized sheep. He's called us to a flock. So only lost. He left the 99 to go get the one. What? To bring them back in to the flock. We are a collective body of people that are following Jesus together. We're doing it imperfectly. We're doing it limping along, but we're still following him. And it's really not about us. It's about the good shepherd. And we're chasing him. And that's where our focus is. Matthew chapter 12. Y'all okay? While Jesus was still speaking to the crowds, his mother and brothers came and stood outside, asking for him to come out and speak with them. So they're like at the door. They're like, hey, Jesus is at this house, this ministry. They're like, hey, Jesus, can you tell Jesus to come out here? We've got some family business we need to take care of. Then someone said, look, your mother and brothers are standing outside waiting to have a word with you. But Jesus just looked at him and said, let me introduce you to my true mothers and brothers. I mean, here's Mary outside the house and some of his brothers, his blood mother and brothers. And they're like, we need to talk to Jesus. And they're like, Jesus, your family's here. And he's like, let me show you who your family is. Jesus looked at him and said, let me introduce you to my true mother and brothers. Then gesturing to the disciples gathered around him, he said, look closely, for this is my true family. Who's he talking about? Those that are following him. When you obey my heavenly Father, that makes you part of your true family, of my true family. How do we become part of the family of God? By following Jesus. And listen, in the family, you have all kinds of characters. If we weren't live streaming, I would use some names right now. I mean, we've all got like crazy uncles, right?
Yeah, we do.
Right? family. You can't just decide they're not family.
Right.
You can't just do that. Or I'm a better family member than they are. Well, now you fall into the greatest sin that I would suggest is pride.
Yeah. Good.
So when Jesus rescued us and gave us a new nature, he put us into a new family. Listen to this, John 6:28. This is the theme verse for this year. He says, then they asked him, what must we do to do the works God requires? Remember what Jesus is saying? If you want to obey me to be part of the family. Well, so now they're asking him, okay, what are you requiring? What part do we need to obey? Do we need to obey the law of Moses? Do we need to obey the state? What do we need to obey? And then Jesus said, they asked him, what must we do to do the work that God requires? And Jesus answered, the work of God is this, to believe.
Yes.
Not to do, but to believe. And what happens when we believe? What happens? John 1:12. To those who believed in him and accepted him, he gave them the right to become children of God. The whole world is not children of God. Quit listening to Oprah. The whole world is not the children of God.
Right. Right.
The children of God are those that believe in him, accept him. To those he gives them the exousia. It's a governmental form. You have been adopted, and there is a form. My little brother has 4 adopted kids. And they had to go to court to adopt those kids. They have a legal document. I don't have that for my kids. I don't have the state saying these are your children. I have a birth certificate, but it hasn't been issued in court that they're my kids. So in a sense, my brother has more authority to call his kids his own than I have to have my kids, and they're adopted. How does that work? Exousia. He has governmental authority over those children because they're part of the family. And we, as believing and trusting Jesus now, are in the family of God. We have governmental authority, exousia, authority in the family, sonship. Daughtership. We're sons and daughters of God. We all serve the same King, King Jesus. And when Jesus told us to pray, he said, pray like this, our Father.
Yes.
Not my Father, our Father. It's a collective engagement. So in 2010, Leslie and I went through a difficult time, the most difficult season of our marriage. If you're married, you'll go through difficult times. You'll go through difficult seasons. Some of you don't think that because you've been married 6 months, but you will have a difficult time. And I hope that you have people around you and that are surrounding you to help you get through that.
Yes.
And people you can be vulnerable with. Listen, ladies, not just some girlfriends that you can go and bash your husband to, but someone that you can go to that will not just believe you, but believe in the marriage, the institution of family. Listen, if you're going to a person that tells you everything that you want to hear, you need to go to somebody else. You need encouragement. Complaining. Listen, nothing will destroy a marriage like guys complaining about your wife to other. She just on my keys all the time. She quit laying my clothes out for me. Well, become a man and pick out your own clothes. She forgot to pay for my Xbox subscription. Okay, all right, carrying on. So we're going through this hard time. And like I'm telling you, I did not really emphasize community this much. This is 12 years ago. And so we're struggling. Common marriage issues. And Leslie's like, I'm tired of Josh Brown being annoying and grumpy. And I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? Right? I'm freaking out. And we were kind of under this broken mindset that people that were in ministry couldn't have problems. So we didn't have anybody that would help us because we had to put on a show. And what we found is if we don't allow people to be honest, we force them to be fake. And so we were being fake in the sense that we put on a good show, but we were struggling. And it wasn't until we got some counsel and we're open and honest with Leslie's parents that we were able to get some help. So we go through this difficult, we're still learning, like, how did we get here? And so we lose our job because of it. We're working in a church. We lost our job because of it. And then we struggle, and it was just a difficult season. And we moved to this little town in the panhandle of Texas called Amarillo. And for the first time in our marriage, in 7 years of marriage, six and a half years of marriage, we finally had friends. And we got around other believers, other couples that had struggles also. And that we would leave the small group and we go, oh, it's not so bad. Our marriage is actually pretty good. I mean, we're like, because they're like, it's like we're going and like playing referee at these small groups. We're like, whoa. I mean, there's like buses everywhere, and bodies laying, and we're like, come on, you don't have to go through that. And so for the first time in our relationship as a married couple, we felt so much joy. And we felt encouragement because we had people around us. We had a family. We had a family. So when we started Overflow in 2012 in our living room, almost 10 years ago, October, we're gonna have a celebration in October. It's gonna be awesome. You're gonna want to be here or there, hopefully there, wherever that is. It was obvious to us, we were wanting to take over a church. Lord, just make it easy on us. Let us take over a church, have a nice little comfortable salary. Rarely does God call you to do something that's comfortable. And so after about 8 months of kind of like, okay, Lord, I was like, all right, we're supposed to plant a church. What are we going to do for money? Or all the things. And so Pastor Leslie and I just started dreaming. What do you want to do? We want to start off. We'll just start off in our living room, share a meal together, like friends, like we've been experiencing, worship the Lord, and minister to one another's needs. That was the vision. That's all it was. We didn't have any money. We didn't have anybody saying, go plant a church. We just had this vision in our heart, a family in our home, sharing a meal together. So we come out here on a house hunting trip, and we meet two people that we never met before. And this is what they said. If I was going to plant a church today, this is what one pastor said. If I was going to plant a church today, I'd start in my living room, share a meal together, worship the Lord, and minister to needs. We're like, that's what we're going to do. Then we meet another pastor we didn't know, and he's like, man, it's all about gathering in your home, sharing a meal together, worship the Lord, ministering to one another's needs. And we're like, okay, Lord, this is confirmation. So we're driving back to Amarillo to pack up our stuff. And Pastor Leslie gets an email that says, hey, I had a dream. One of the staff members we were serving with, she said, I had a dream that you guys were in your house and you had tables and you were feeding people and ministering to them. And we're like, okay, Lord. Yes, thank you for the confirmation, because we weren't real sure. Never are we real sure. We can be pretty sure, but we're not like super sure, And so we obeyed the Lord. And so what I found, you're like, well, Overflow's not doing that. We're gathering together on a Sunday morning. We're not sharing a meal. We are. Yeah. We are sharing meals together. Yeah. But it's not just in my home. It's in the Frost's home. It's in the Clark's home. It's in the Connor's home. It's in the sponsor's home. It's at the restaurant. We're sharing meals together. We're doing life. We're ministering to one another's needs. We're honoring the Lord. It's happening. It's happening. And I want to encourage you in this. If you are a part of Overflow Church, if you're a part of any church family, and you are the only thing that means is that you attend on a Sunday, I want to say this politely, you are malnourished. Because there is something about coming together in Sunday mornings, and they're powerful. But listen, there's more to it than that. We're following Jesus together, and that doesn't just mean that we come together and worship together, hear the word, and go home. It means that we are doing life together. We're eating at the restaurant. We're having the text threads. You got to get in on it, beloved, and that's why we do groups. We take a break during the summer, but they're coming back and next week on our kickoff into Summer Bash. Why do we do into Summer Bash? To get you into somebody's living room. And if you're not in somebody's living room that's in this room, you need to find a living room that you can be involved in.
Right. That's good.
If you want health, you got to be around people, healthy people.
Yes.
And when one of them gets unhealthy, about that time, you'll be healthy.
Right.
Because that's the way it goes.
Yes. That's good.
Beloved, if you've been here and you're not in a group, you're missing out. You're missing out. We need one another. Yeah. We need one another. And did you know the world knows this? Did you know this? The world knows this. I've seen so many things. I drove when I was on my way to the furnace yesterday. They were having this big thing outside of this barber shop in Grand Prairie over on Matthew Road. And they had all these little pop-up tents, and they had signs and stuff. And I was like, oh, is it a church starting? To me, that's what it looked like in my mind. But it wasn't. It was for some business. I don't even know what the business was. And it said on there, we are family. And you know, I see that everywhere. I believe that started in the church, but the world has caught on to it because what the world knows and what we know is that we need to belong to something. I mean, you have family, you have your blood family, but you know that God has called you to belong to something greater than yourself. Yes. The world knows this. People want to belong. Yes. The highest compliment that we can hear from people that attend Overflow Church is this: I felt like home. I used to not think that was the highest compliment. I used to think the highest compliment was like, man, that was a good word, so fiery. Minister to me, my life's changed. And like a week later, they don't even remember what I said. And I'm like, don't you remember? I preached about it 6 months ago. So I'm just going to start circulating my sermons. You don't ever remember. I'll preach the same thing. Every year, I'm just going to go back and start doing them again. Let's do it again, Lord. They won't know. The highest compliment I can receive on a Sunday morning is when people go, it just feels like home. It's the best thing. Yeah. Can I tell you that it feels like home to me too? Yeah. I get opportunities sometimes to be other places on Sunday mornings, and the whole time I'm like, I wish I was at Overflow. I'm not lying. It's rare, beloved. That's why we're not caught up in systems. We have systems, but we're not just trying to plug you into a machine. Lord, help us. By the way, the church isn't an organization, it's an organism. And when you start thinking that it's an organization, whether you're at the top leading that or you're criticizing it as an organization, you've missed it. The church is an organism. Acts chapter 2. We love the book of Acts, right? Come on, power, that book of Acts. This is what it says about them. We love it. All the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship. Yes. We had a guy that used to attend church here. Well, he didn't really attend church here. He would show up like every 6 months. And he's like, I'll be there next week. Hey, you're back. I'll be here next week. 6 months later, same conversation. This is just a thing. It's a thing that happens. And he told me, I called him. I was like, hey, man, been missing you. How you doing? He's like, oh, man, I've had a lot going on. Been working. I've been on call on the weekends. Oh, yeah, man, we love you. We miss you. Hope to see you, you've been with us a long time, kind of. And he said, I listen to the podcast every single week. He's like, that message you preached on it. He's like, man, that really got me. I was like, man, that is awesome. Like, I was so encouraged that he would do that. So encouraged. And then God gave me this picture for him. And this will help those of you that watch online or only listen. I said, this is the way it is, man. I said, you are eating a leftover reheated meal. I said, when we come together to eat a meal together, to share a meal together, to fellowship together, there's a lot that goes into that. There's communication that happens. We all show up. We all play a role. Some of us are cooking. Some of us pick something up. You know, some are cleaning afterwards. There's a whole experience around it. And then we eat the meal. And I said, what you're doing, I was like, you kind of like show up after everybody's gone home, and there's some leftovers, and they're in a Tupperware in the fridge. And you open it up, and you put it in the microwave, and you eat it, and it's good enough. But you know, and I know that that meal was better when it was fresh off the pot. Come on, you know that Josh Brown brisket. I'm not saying you need to come to our group, first group of the year, but you probably need to. You know that pozole that Josh Brown, Güero pozole, it's way better. What? It's way better. It's way better when you show up at the house and there's people around you talking about how good the food is, and there are other restaurants that you're not eating. Why do we do that? I think that's a white people thing. We're eating food and we're talking about the other food that we're not eating and how good it is. Is that just a Christian thing? Okay, I thought it was a white people thing. I'm both. I'm a white people Christian, so both those things fit both narratives. Okay. You know that there's more to the experience than just warming something up in the microwave and eating a meal. And I said, man, this is what you're doing. I'm glad you're still eating. You'll still be nourished, but you're missing so much by not being in on the family. So it says this. They devoted themselves to the teaching, to the fellowship, and to sharing in meals, including the Lord's Supper, and to prayer. A deep sense of awe came over them all. They were like, whoa! Awesome. And the apostles performed many miracles, signs, and wonders. Yeah. Maybe the lack of signs and wonders and miracles, maybe it's because we haven't emphasized community enough. And all the believers met together in one place. By the way, signs, miracles, and wonders, I see signs, miracles, and wonders happen often that aren't supernatural.
That's good.
Now, we obviously primarily want the supernatural, but I see humans meeting other humans' needs because they're in family together. Yes. Hey, we don't need these dishes anymore. Hey, I finished this book. Yes. Provisions and resources. Yeah. Nothing's really deeply spiritual about it except for we're following Jesus together. Yeah. They sold their property and possessions and shared the money with those in need. They worshiped together at the temple each day, met in homes for the Lord's Supper, and shared meals with great joy and generosity, all while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of all the people. And each day the Lord added to their fellowship. Now don't miss that. The Lord added to their fellowship. He didn't just add to the number. Yeah. I'm a pastor. I have a tendency to look at numbers. They added to the fellowship. I don't want a number, I want a face. I want a name. Yes. Hebrews 10:23, let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how we may spur one another on. What do you do to get a horse moving? Spur it on. Towards love and good deeds. Let us not give up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing. But let us encourage one another. And all the more as you see the day approaching. So what is true fellowship? Let me give these real quick. First of all is vulnerability and authenticity. Vulnerability and authenticity. If you're not vulnerable, if you're not real, then the relationships in your life are phony. See, everyone wants to be loved for who they are, but many portray a version, a deep fake of who they are in order to be loved. You won't love me for who I am, so I'll pretend to be someone else. And then we go, I don't feel loved. It's because you were never real. You were never honest. I can't love anyone but the real you. I'm loving this other version, and then when I find out it's not you, I'm like, who am I been loving this whole time? You know, when we talk about being vulnerable, when we talk about being authentic, we're not talking about being verbal vomit or what we might call venting. I just need someone to vent to. Yes. Remember, complaining is draining. If I get around you and all you ever do is complain, that's draining. Complaining is draining. Right. And so am I going to want to be around you if all you ever do is complain? No. And you're not going to want to be around me if all I were to do is you come over to our house on Wednesday and I'm like, oh, tickets were down on Sunday. So-and-so wasn't there. And I'm just complaining. You're going to be like, dang, I'm going to the sponsors group next week. Right? Not verbal vomit. We call it venting. It's just complaining. That's good. Okay? We're not talking. There are going to be times when you have complaints. There are going to be times when you have sorrows and you need to talk to someone about it. I'm not saying that. I'm just talking about if that's your go-to, you've got a problem. Right. That's good. A good rule is this, to only complain to those that can help. That's why it does no good for you to complain on social media. It's also a good way to get unfollowed from your pastor. All right, number 2. Encouragement and enjoyment. This is what it says, right? That they were encouraged, that they were enjoying, that they were praising, they were celebrating. Romans 12:15, weeping with those that weep and rejoicing with those that rejoice. Number 3, sharpening. These are all marks of good fellowship. Listen, fellowship is not just a shoulder to cry on, but a stone to sharpen our edges. If all the people in your life, if a Christian friend is in your life and they are laughing off, winking, or encouraging behavior that doesn't honor the Lord, they're not being a good friend. I don't care how many Bible verses they memorized or how high they raise their hands during worship. If they will wink at your sin, if they will laugh about you doing things that are shady, things that would compromise the gospel, they're not a good friend to you. Beloved, let's not get so comfortable where we think that, oh, they're doing that and I'll just overlook it. Social media has done that. We've gotten to where we just overlook people's things. Listen, God put you in my life and me in your life to sharpen you up, baby. As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Now, if you get around people and you think it's your job to always, I'm just going to straighten you out, God put me in your life, that's unhealthy. That's another good way to get people eliminated from your life. And I'm not into the whole eliminate the toxic people, because sometimes what you call toxic is just a person that's sharpening you, a person that's trying to help you be more like Jesus. That's what's more toxic, is for someone to let you continue in your sin and never say anything about it. That's a toxic friend. They don't ever say anything about it when I do stupid things. That's not a friend. That sounds like an enemy to me. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. Get a friend in your life that will call you out. So what I've noticed as a pastor, whenever I call someone out on something and they get offended and they quit listening to me, they friend zone me. And I'm like, I guess we can't be friends then, because God's called me to be your pastor. But if I can call some things out in your life, and there might be times when you have to call stuff out in my life, we've got to have these kind of relationships. Number 4 is forgiveness. Keep short accounts. We're the most like Christ when we forgive those that have done us wrong. That's when you're most like Jesus. When I'm most like Jesus, when I'm feeding the poor, no, when you're forgiving people that didn't. When I'm out preaching the gospel, no, whenever you're nice to people that aren't. Whew. Yeah, I know we all got the excuses. Number 5, generosity and resourcing. Generosity and resourcing. It says in Galatians 10, it says, as we have every opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially those who belong to the family of God. Sometimes we got it backwards. We think it's our job to meet all the needs of the world. This is telling us right here that we should prioritize the family of God. And I know people that are at soup kitchens every week feeding the homeless, and they're angry and bitter at the local church. And they think that they're more spiritual than you and I are because we're here this morning and we're not out feeding people. This is what it says, especially those who belong to the family of the believers. I love that you're out feeding, meeting needs. But how are you treating the bride of Christ? Number 2, we meet needs together. We're closing up. So we need one another and we meet needs together. God blesses what we do together. I've got an awesome illustration for you. So this week, we went to Mexico. And Daniel and Sarai approached us this fall. And Daniel said, hey, can we use the church tax exempt form to buy like 40 backpacks for this small town that's been in drought for 4 years in the desert of Mexico? And I was like, we'll do more than that. We'll buy them. And so I said, well, we're not going to do, so we got together, we kind of talked about it. So people are like, man, I'll buy 10. So we're like, let's do 120. So we came up with that number. And so the whole month of July, we were raising money, $35 for a backpack, so we go and show up. So on Tuesday, I fly out to Monterey and picked up by Daniel and Sarai right over here. If y'all don't know Daniel and Sarai, you need to, because they'll bring joy to your life. And so what happened, I think we got some pics. So what happened is they assembled this team. So I show up, I'm there to take pictures. Daniel was like, you need to preach. I'm like, I'm not preaching, you're preaching. Like I'm going on vacation. It wasn't vacation, but it was awesome. So they assembled this team. Can we go back? And so this older couple in the center, they're the pastors. And I believe they've been pastoring for 35 years at this church. It's a little bitty church. Like I'm talking remote, no lights, no piano, they have a little speaker for a sound system. It's not good. And we need to buy them one. And this amazing team that Daniel and Sarai assembled. So I show up and these guys are picking us up. And we go and we kind of hang out and see all the sites. We go in. Can we go to the next one? So I got to tell you, we had this event. And I got a 2-minute video for you in just a moment. We show up at this event on Wednesday, and the pastor had some expectations. Yeah, maybe we'll have 100 people there. I think maybe that would have been really hot. Their auditorium is probably close to the size of this one minus the stage. So they can fit about 120 people there. So they were thinking, yeah, it's okay. So we go, we load everything, and the bus shows up. Now we walk into the auditorium and it's completely full. We're like, oh, they're here, they're early. That's a miracle in Mexico, they're early. And so we're on time. And so and there people are pouring in. And so Sarai jumps up and she's like, we've got to take the service outside. So all the people get up and they go outside, and as they're going outside, the bus pulls up. And it's full of people. And they have these vans. They're full of people. And people are showing up. So we're pulling out pews and chairs, every resource we can just to sit these people down. And they sit down. There's probably somewhere between 250 and 300 people there. The pastor's got his eyes are misty. They haven't had an event this long in forever. They haven't had Americans come in probably 10 years, they said. And so they didn't have anything, but you guys just saw it. So proud of these guys. They were singing this little special song, and there were 4 kids. So Sarai jumps up and she's like, come on, all the niños. And she's calling them, in Spanish, of course. And she calls them, and they're all running up. And all these kids, she's singing and leading them, and they're all singing out. She's owning it like a boss. And then Daniel wanted me to preach. I was like, no. It's you need to preach. He's like, I'm so super nervous. So we kind of worked on his message a little bit and kind of just talked to him about preparing. So Daniel gets up, and I didn't understand a word he said, but this dude was preaching it up and just bringing the word so good and just sharing the gospel with these people. And listen, how were we able to do this? Because Daniel had a thing in his heart that he wanted to do. But he could do more if we did something together. And maybe as a church, we could have reached in our missions budget and bought some, but we could buy more if you helped, because we can do it together. So we can help people together. So when you watch this video, I didn't do it. Daniel and Sarai didn't do it. You did it. You did it because you gave, because you're part of this family. So we can do more together. We meet needs together. We want to show this real quick.
Thank you so much for joining us at church today. Please subscribe to this channel and hit the bell for future notifications. We pray that you have a blessed week, and we can't wait to encounter Jesus with you online.